got 152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
That's dirt.
Yo. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the Preferred Lines Golf Podcast. My name is Joe Idoni, your host for this week and every week. A grateful host I am, and thank you for joining me on the show this week. A pleasure to bring the show to you. As always, we will be kind of recapping a little bit of the Players' Championship tonight. We will dig deep into the Copperhead Course at the Innisbrook Resort, host of the 2025 Valspar Championship, and I've got a guest along with me to help isolate some value and see if we got a few picks for you over the course of the next hour or so. Like I mentioned, a guest will be joining me in just a moment. As always, this show is proudly, generously brought to you by the good folks over at Rotoballer PGA Team. The entire crew, top to bottom, absolutely crushed it at the Players Championship. If you want involved, if you want to be a part of the team, the promo code there is LINES, LINES, to get you 10% off any sub, weekly, monthly, annual, as we gear up and ramp up toward major championship season. It is a great idea to have full access to, sometimes my stuff's a little bit shaky, but everything that Spencer Aguiar puts out on a weekly basis is completely phenomenal. The premium side of things gives you all the tools that you will need. And I have a couple articles on the premium side as well. Access to the Discord channel, all that good stuff, courtesy of the good folks over at Rotoballer PGA. Again, give them a shout. Join the program. Promo code there is LINES. Good evening, Joanne. It's great to see you again. Thank you to everybody for joining me on the show. A little bit of a late start tonight because I wanted to wrap up the TGL semis. Can't miss that putt, Tommy Fleetwood. Cannot miss that putt. That is a bad omen for this week. Let's go no further without bringing the guest on to kind of walk me through this week. Co-host of the What's the Spread podcast and the No BS Golf Show. My man covers a ton of different sports, but as you've seen, if you follow him on social, a big chunk of his heart is dedicated toward covering professional golf. Welcoming back to the show, one of the most electric men in golf content. We're going right now, Mr. Brad Thomas. What's up this evening, my man?
Yo, dude, I am doing good, right? Like anytime the Florida swing rolls around, I can just basically take a car for like an hour and go to a golf course. I'm always in a good mood, always happy to cover. Boots on the ground is like one of the best ways to really handicap a golf tournament and see a little bit different, right? Like it's a great week.
So you were live on site last week at TPC Sawgrass. You mentioned to me before we went hot here, Wednesday practice round, a great place to get some inside info. Took the family on Saturday as well, which is always a great moving day at the Players Championship. Got to experience a little bit of that weather carnage. What was the most memorable moment of the week for you? Did you end up on Rory? What will you remember about the 2025 Players?
I'll say the most memorable was there was no one who was out of it in the placement markets, like at any point. I didn't officially bet Shane Lowry, but I did talk about Shane Lowry a little bit on the Odds Shopper spaces. And
saw that. You got a great job with that.
But thank you, and I appreciate it. Whenever I kind of lean somebody, if I can't get to the window, I still want to monitor, right, to see how I was doing. And this is more so a brag on him than it is on me, since I had $0 on him. But Shane Lowry was dead to rights in any placement market. The man finished inside the top 20, which was a full cash for anybody who played him. And like he even like late on Sunday, he didn't look like he was going to be he looked like maybe T31 was where he was going to finish. I thought that was pretty electric. I thought the fact that anybody, when you see things or you hear things about anybody has a chance, because the weather, get in, post a score and see what happens. It was more so for anybody who was flirting with like a top 40 or flirting with like a top 30. I know Sepp Straka, this is probably the one I should highlight. Sepp Straka, I was top 30 on him, but a lot of the members of my Discord live in Florida and they don't have access to the other books. So they only had top 20. They were literally sweating Straka out towards the end. He got off that really bad start on Sunday. That was really electric watching them because it doesn't mean anything if I cash by myself. I want to cash with the homies too. So that was pretty sick.
Lowry was a big mover on Sunday. There were some guys that went the opposite direction as well. I think one of the guys I was on was Ryan Gerard, who I might be on him again this week, but was awesome on Saturday. Was like flirting with leaderboard page status, Ryan Gerard, and ended up shooting, I think, 78 or 79 on Sunday to kind of finish in the 40th. But that's what this event brings. And I think that's the beauty of TPC Sawgrass and why, like, this is fifth major talk. We're not going to go there, but this is one of the premium events that you will see each and every year. Just look at Justin Thomas. I mean, you can shoot 78 and back that up with a course record. The guy shot 3 out of 4 rounds over par and still was like made a move and made his mark in the tournament in terms of the history books. So really cool, but obviously ended this morning with a playoff, 3-hole aggregate playoff with, I think, the best, most made for TV final 3-hole stretch, I think, in the world. It was kind of anticlimactic at that just because of how things shook out in terms of the play, but it still had plenty of juice. I mean, the holes had difficulty. 17 was fun. 18, you just never know with the water there if someone overhooks a draw. Okay, I was totally wrong, and I'll be the first to admit that on completely fading Rory McIlroy. Where was your like pulse at on Rory for the week? It's tough to bet someone plus 50 to win, but were you circling the blood?
I don't know if you know this. I'm in a really bad funk, and it's not okay. The season's been going great, but these last 3 weeks, if I bet on the golfer the week prior, they won the event. I hammered and jammed Rory at API. He went on to win this event. And the only reason I stayed off him was because I was like, I can't go back and just have this small itty bitty card. But what's really killing me about Rory winning is the fact that I said something along the lines of, this is the Players Championship, right? Like, guys like, and I'm just using this as an example because he won at Valspar last year, but guys like Malnati are not supposed to win the Players Championship, right? It's supposed to be the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the shot makers. And I went out and I bet on a lot of guys who weren't shot makers and ignored Rory, but I will be excited because I absolutely jammed him live. I didn't think the minus 160, I got minus 163. I didn't think that price made any sense, right? Like, if you play this 100 times, him versus Spawn, you think that Spawn is winning what, 37% of the 37 of the times? No, maybe 20. So I jammed that price and it was sweat free. So I got a little skin back on Rory, but man, cashing that outright would have been so nice.
Yeah, so interesting. I thought here's the thing. I actually thought Spawn did have a chance because of the variance in those 3 holes, because of how things ended on Sunday, especially for McIlroy being able, like, 16 is the easiest hole on the course. He didn't make birdie there. And then you were forced to go into a playoff. And then all the pressure is on Rory. And the only thing I thought of was, like, I think that 2 things. He got to hit first, right? So automatically got to hit first and absolutely sends a nuclear missile like 345 yards and has pitching wedge in on a par 5. Like, that was the moment it was probably over, but he misses that. And you never know how things shake out there. 17 was kind of random. And I think both guys sort of admitted that, where they hit a shot that they liked and they really didn't know. Like, for the same price, Rory could have got a gust and been short or long, and Spawn could have been close. So here's the thing, like, about Rory that I kind of noticed. And I was kind of hating on him yesterday because on Sunday, at least, there were some moments where he bothered. First of all, faded him this week. So I was wrong. So I was mad at myself. Second of all, he just seems so irritable and like agitated. And this is the entire week. I mean, this comes from snatching the guy's phone out of his hands. Was no holds barred with the media all week. Called out Scotty Scheffler for slow play on the greens. I thought he was kind of like on his walk up to 17 after he got backed off. Like, there's kids there, man. They're lining to give you a high five, and he's intentionally walking along the grass, along the water, and like mean mugging little kids. Won't give a high five to anybody. And to me, it just brought me back to like those moments that really endeared me to Bryson at the U.S. Open, where he like felt the moment and wanted to bring everyone with him. Rory seemed to wanted to shut everyone out. But maybe, as I thought about it more, maybe he's this is a year where he's morphing into the bad guy like we asked for and we needed. When all the guys left for Live and we said there's no bad guys left, he knows he has a huge Ryder Cup where he's going to be booed. He's going to hear the USA chants. They're going to give it to him like none other in Bethpage. And, all things that seem to be bothering him internally and externally throughout the week, guy still won his second big tournament of the year and did so without his best stuff. Had his B game, maybe B plus game, and pulled it out, which I think I have to give him credit for. I appreciate how he does wear it on his sleeve and he's not fake. So I appreciate that. But some of the moments where he just seems so grumpy and irritable while he's winning the Players' Championship rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. Did you get any sense of that at all this week? Or what do you think on where he stands, as a character in this whole story?
I just feel like with Rory, it's a no-win situation for him when anything happens, right? There's no way that Rory goes and says or does the right thing at any moment. I think this season too, like you called it a warpath, but I think he just wants to shut up some people because, we kind of take Rory for granted, right? Like
totally
early success, crazy success, continued domination at a very high level. Sure, all of the wins probably don't match up to, or lack thereof recently, right? Don't match up to how prolific of a player he is, but it's really hard to win on the PGA Tour. And if Rory falls short, right? If Rory misses a 7-foot putt to send it to a playoff in a major, right? It's a bigger deal than anybody else in the world. And I think even a bigger deal than if Scotty Scheffler were to do that. So for him, I think he's just got to be so focused, laser focused, and really only focus on himself. Rory is a great ambassador for the game. Like he's a Golf Channel ambassador, right? Like I think sometimes that can be weighing on him a little bit, right? Like, and not where he feels like he has to act a different way, but just subconsciously, he does so much for the game, does a lot of media, and is always in the spotlight. So sometimes, it might seem he's kind of rubbed the wrong way. Other times it could just be like he's just focused, right? And I sometimes think that on the course, when he's missing some of those 3 and 4 foot putts, he's losing focus. He lets the tournament kind of take him over, at least the emotions of the tournament, and it's not laser focused. This was probably the most laser focused I saw him, except for the closing stretch on Sunday. Like, I don't know what the heck. He played like he want to win. Well, he was 3 up on 15, maybe 14. And that should have been like when he put his foot on the gas and he kind of let up there. So media wise, I think I give him a pass sometimes. I give him a pass more often than not. And as someone who works for NBC and the Golf Channel, like I've been at events where I've worked like as a volunteer and he's been there as an ambassador. Like I just feel like he does so much that maybe people don't realize or see, that sometimes it just kind of just becomes a lot, and subconsciously he acts like maybe unsavory. And by unsavory, I mean like not being the guy who welcomes the fans. He's kind of like, I'm here to do a job. I'll make sure I take care of all the pleasantries after I win.
Totally. And you mentioned there that you've worked with NBC Sports and you've been in the media, and I've had my, feet kind of in the water now recently in that media center. One of the other things that I pulled from the week, and I think maybe it was Joel Beal who wrote a piece about this, but I've noticed this contentiousness, and there seems to be this distrust forming between the players and the people who are covering the players. Whether it's Rory, there were the quotes from Colin Morikawa that seemed to get a little barbed wired. Scotty, I saw, refused to answer a question and kind of looked at the guy and was like, why would I answer a question that you just want to take my words and use them for your story? And it's like, yeah, we're here working for you guys to help promote the game. Have you sensed any of this? And do you think the contentiousness is warranted? Like, do the players owe the media anything?
Oh, man. First, I'll start with this. There are so many bad actors in media that are ruining it for everyone else, right? Like, they do things and they take things out of context and kind of just drill the athletes. And it makes it for an unpleasant experience for the athlete, right? Like they don't ever want to be misquoted. They don't want to ever have their words used against them. And now in this new generation that we live in, where everyone wants to get clipped, they're just doing that to the athletes. To answer your question, the media has never been more entitled than I've ever seen. So I've been in media now for, 9 years. So now this is going on my 10th year being in media, and golf media, especially, it's like, it feels like it feels like we think, and I'm saying we as a generalized statement, that we're owed something. Like these players owe it to us. We make them so much money. They have to answer all of our questions when we want, how we want. And to be frank, like sometimes the questions suck, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
sometimes the questions
that's
suck.
real.
And sometimes people don't read the room, right? Like with Colin Morikawa, and this is actually my wife who brought this point up with me, because I was a little, I don't know, maybe on both sides of the fence with this, whether he was in the right or the wrong. Colin Morikawa labeled it as, one of his worst defeats, worst losses, and emotionally wasn't in the right state. And how has it become a win for him if he says something out of, maybe anger or emotion, and then a media member takes that, they use that, they clip it, and they just paint him in a bad light when he's probably at one of his lowest points of his career, of the year, or of the, the last couple of years. Why not regroup, settle, and then kind of answer the questions when you need to?
Yeah.
That's what, and I also think that he said that because I'm sure he faced backlash from people who are like, you're not going to answer our questions. Like, who do you think you are? Well, listen, I saw a quote, and I'm sorry, he was basically really upset and saying that they do owe us something. And no, I don't think so, right? Like, just as much as athletes wouldn't be as popular as they were if it weren't for the media, none of us media members would have jobs if these athletes were not elite at their own job. So we owe them just as much. And I think that we need to do a better job of being respectful and being a journalist with integrity. And I think a lot of that it's this new age of media where it's just so gross, right? Like going back to the Rory thing, that kid was only doing that to get a reaction. Like, we are not at a hockey game, dude. Like, this golf is a game of respect, and like, you shouldn't be acting like that. Like, if you want to go heckle someone, go to a football game, basketball game, hockey game. Like, just go out there, be a gentleman or a lady, respect the opponents that are playing, respect the competitors, and just go about your day, but not try to get clipped or try to have this rise where you go viral.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because even like it's a struggle, like being in the media center, right? Like I've sat there at TGL, and I've got a spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, like a Google Doc up of like maybe like 10 to 12 different questions. And like what goes through your mind is like, I have one question that I can ask. What can I ask that I can then snip into 90 seconds that may get picked up, that may go viral, that may get picked up by golf.com, that may get picked up by Nuclear? Like, I want to ask that question, right? They don't want that on the turn. They don't want their answer to be viewed a million times on Twitter. So it's very tough to find that balance. I'll say this about Rory. You're right in everything. Where it backfires, though, with taking the fan's phone, with not engaging with them, with being outwardly disgusted by some of their actions, is you start to feed the beast a little bit, and it can
100%.
only get worse. Like, I remember this happening with Bryson around the time of the Memorial, where he started to get contentious with fans and started to look back at them, and it only fueled the fans with like, you tell them not to say Brooksy, and all of a sudden you tell one guy not to say Brooksy, and there's 100 of them at the next tournament that are saying Brooksy because they want to get clipped too. You snatch a phone's fan for talking about the 11th hole at Augusta. Guess what's happening when you get to, probably not the Masters, but guess what people are going to be yelling to you when you get to New York? You're kind of feeding that, and I think it's a little bit short-sighted at time too. It's almost kill them with kindness type of deal. You don't want to hear it, then you don't acknowledge it. It's the same thing with Twitter. You feed one of the trolls back, and they're going to keep coming at you. You know what I mean? You're someone who tracks everything that you bet. You're on the Odd Shopper. You've got your Discord channel. You've tracked everything. What's the most profitable market for golf for you? Is it placements, matchups, outright betting? What's the best?
So I'm going to be brutally honest, right? Like, obviously, it's outrights in terms of the ROI is so much higher.
Yeah.
But this year, and I would say this. This is what I used to say. I would say the placements pay for the outrights. This year, it's been the total opposite. The outrights have been playing for the placements. I just finally had an event where I had back-to-back events where I had positive ROI on placements, and I've just been relying on outrights all year. I kind of just was questioning myself of, was I just playing too many popular guys in the placement market, expecting big weeks? Was I not sticking to my models? I love building models.
Yeah.
I love cross-referencing models. Like, how could I be doing so poorly in the placement markets when that used to be something where I know I could give out 3 to 4 guys, odds varying, and that will pay for our entire outright card. This
Yeah.
season, it's not been the case. Outrights are always going to be like probably my best. I'm a little more aggressive in my outright unit placement than others. Like, I don't do the 7x ROI and all that. I
Mhm.
tried that for this end of last year through, I think, 3 tournaments ago. I just can't do that from the way I bet. Like, if I'm hitting 100 to 1, I want to pick up like 50 units on that, right? Like, if I hit 100 to 1, I shouldn't have to still hit 7 more times to be profitable on the season. So I think that it's got to be outright just because the way I play them, a little more aggressive. I'm willing to risk 3 units on the entire card, and my potential ROI is going to be 60 units, right? So I'm
Mhm.
probably a little more aggressive. That's probably why my ROI is a little higher in that market.
Cool. Love it. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about this week. Valspar
Yeah.
Championship. I'm going to go over some course notes here. Let's see what you got as well to add. Obviously, the Copperhead Course at Innisbrook Resort is once again the host of the 2025 Valspar Championship. 7,352 yards, par 71. Greens are a Poa Trivialis overseed. A lot of bunkers, steep, penal bunkers at this place, like especially the fairway ones, a lot of times require essentially a layup and don't let you go for the
Yeah.
greens. 9 holes with water in play. Average fairway width is like less than 25 yards, tiny little greens as well. The course plays longer than I think that yardage you see, in part because you've got 5 par 3s, 4 of which play over 200 yards. So one of the more unique aspects of this course. Obviously, we know about the snake pit, probably one of the toughest, insanely difficult closing stretches in all of golf. 16 is just brutal. One of the toughest holes all year. Last year, I think it played to like a little over a 4.3 average. It's only a 450-yard par 4, which is it's not
Yeah.
difficult. It's insane. But last year, in total, through 4 rounds, there were only 49 birdies on hole 16 for the week, 141 bogeys or worse. It's pretty crazy. I think the PME had this stat in his newsletter, which you guys should go sign up for over with Pat Mayo. But no Valspar winner has ever played the snake pit under par for 4 straight days.
Wow.
This course requires patience. It is the lowest birdie rate of any course on tour. There are just holes, Brad, where you just can't attack out here.
Yep.
It's one of those courses that just demand patience and plotting and ball striking. Those are some of the most important notes that I have. Anything to add before we kind of move on?
Yeah, I want to say this. Like, there's a couple things that I think a lot of people here in Innisbrook Resort, they think Florida, they think it's, super wide open with these massive greens. It's not. And then you said patience. I think that's the best way to describe it, because if you go look back at Malnati, you go look back at Burns, like past winners, and you look at like how did they go and win this course? It's the best way to look at it. You're not gonna say, oh, they dominated on approach, they dominated this way. They were patient, right? They took what came to them and they capitalized. You're going to miss greens here. Like, if most of your approaches are going to be from 175 to 200 yards out, like, you're going to miss greens. It's a 5,500 yard,
Yeah, small.
500 square foot greens. Like, you're going to miss them. So you just take your time. Don't 3-putt as well. I think that's really important
It's
to
tough
note.
here
Like,
too.
yeah,
One of the
it's
highest 3-putt percentages on tour.
very high. It's tough. It's a tough course to put up. I played this course too, and I played in a tournament out here, and I was like, I wanted to go home by like hole 13.
Yeah. I don't think off the tee is particularly important here. I mean, you look at Malnati, lost strokes off the tee. I think 3 of the last 7 have lost. Past winners, Malnati at -12 last year, Taylor Moore at -10. Burns back-to-back years at -17. Paul Casey went back-to-back. Adam Hadwin, Charles Schwartzel, Jordan Spieth. Eclectic group of winners. I have some good quotes, and kind of to touch on the idea from Malnati last year, where you spoke about how we lump these 4 courses together in the Florida swing, but this one doesn't fit and doesn't feel and doesn't play like the others. Here's what Malnati said. I think loyal fans have an idea of what Florida courses look like, and they picture places like where we play at PGA National, water down both sides of the fairway, palm trees, that kind of stuff. This course is more like Hilton Head. This course is tree lined, thick rough, so it's very un-Florida. Malnati described it as. Charles Schwartzel, when he won, said also this, which I thought was important to know about patience, about understanding the course, and what maybe could play into some course history here. The first time I played it, I did not play this course well. But, the more I played it, I felt like it's a golf course where you sort of need experience to play well. You need to learn how to play this golf course. It looks easy on paper because it's not very long on distance, but man, you have to shape your shots. You have to think, you have to use a variety of clubs, and it's just a really, really good golf course. I think those kind of 2 quotes there sum up a lot of what I have in my notes historically from the Valspar. I think the biggest correlation to success is, it's hard. You guys aren't going to want to hear this, but you got to have a really hot putter. You look at what Burns did. You look at what Malnati was
Everyone
third.
got hot on
Taylor Moore had a great week. Burns in his 2 wins was 7th and 3rd in putting. So, like, if you're going to find the stat most correlated, you got to find a hot putter, which is hard to do from a model standpoint. Yep. But it's ultimately going to factor in success, not only making birdies, but saving pars. The greens in regulation rate is like 55%. You've got to scramble. You've got to get up and down. You've got to save yourself from the sand, and you got to stand in there and make those 5-footers. And this is the second hardest course on tour to make 5-foot putts, behind only Riviera. So a really good examination of a full skill set of a player. I think anybody can win, but you have to show up here in control of your ball, in control of your ball striking, and most of all, bring a hot flat stick.
It's funny too, because like there was no like underlying metric that you really saw with the past winners that like they were going to get hot with their putter. It just kind of clicked. Which could be an indication of being able to live bet somebody, right? Like you see someone who maybe through 2 rounds, they're a couple back, but they're still like 30-1, and they've been a gainer on the putting surfaces back-to-back days. Maybe they have it, right? These are the type of greens too. I do think that you either get them or you don't, right? Like, oh, I have these greens figured out. I'm putting with confidence, or I'm just trying to kind of survive, right? If I get one that goes down the heart of the cup, then I'll take it, but I just don't want a 3-putt. There's a couple different mentalities, and I think you could kind of tell just by the guys' numbers. Like, they're not always the best putters who putt well here, but they kind of get it, and that when they're hot, it stays with them that entire tournament.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to bring up, Brad, my stat model for the week, which I've been showing every week on the show. In the description to this YouTube video or podcast, wherever you are getting this, there is a link there to BetSperts and the rabbit hole. The promo code you punch in is TourPicks. Use all caps, 25% off. You're going to want this tool for the majors. I can't say it any more clearly. I think it's the most robust stat model building tool in the industry. They mentioned it with Rory post round today. I saw they brought it up, and how he plays in the wind, how he plays on difficult courses. You can search for Poa Trivialis greens. It has everything. Here are some of my inputs into my model this week. Now, these weights aren't what I have them. I'll show you that in a second. But look at all the different things you can put in. Tee to green on difficult scoring courses. Strokes gained total at Copperhead. How are guys from 5 to 10 feet? Approaches from 200 to 250 yards. Green in regulation rate on difficult to hit greens. Distance from the edge of the fairways. Good drive percentage. All that leads to my model rankings, in which you can get mine, you can get Andy Lack's, you can get Steve Shermer's, you can get Matt Vincenzi's. You have access to every single one of their quote-unquote experts who build these models. So if you don't feel comfortable building your own, or you want to take elements from each, you can do so very simplistically. Here are the top 10 in my model this week. Go sign up for the rabbit hole now if you haven't yet. DM me if you have any questions. whatsoever. I'm happy to provide any answers or walk you through that process if needed. Tommy Fleetwood, number one in the model, despite clearly doesn't factor in inside 5-foot putting in the SoFi Center this week. But Tommy's number one. Mikey Kim is number two in the model. Shane Lowry, number three. Xander 4, JT 5, Straka 6, Bud Cauley at 7, Lucas Glover at 8, JT Poston 9, Doug Gim at 10. Number one approach player in the field over the last 36 rounds, Straka. Justin Thomas up there, Shane Lowry up there. You can pull some stuff down at the end here, looking at strokes gained total. This is strokes gained total at the Copperhead course. So filtering in the best guys, a lot of guys with not enough qualifying rounds, but Sam Burns, Fleetwood, Schauffele, Cam Young, Victor Hovland, Davis Riley's up there. All this stuff and more available over at the Rabbit Hole. What do you think of my top 10 there, my model? Anyone stick out that's like a little wonky to you?
A little wonky? I don't know, but I think it makes a ton of sense, right? Like,
yeah.
It's funny because when people build models, like they're either going to be vastly different or really similar. Like, I know it's probably a stupid statement to say, but like Straka's high on mine, right? Like, Fleetwood's high on mine. Glover's third on mine.
Yep.
So I actually like yours. I think we probably have similar credentials or metrics that we use. It's funny too because like I've called Tommy Fleetwood a model darling. He's the new Tony Finau. Remember, like before Tony started picking up those wins a couple years ago, he was like first in everyone's model, like every single week. Yep. I just hope the same thing that happened to Tony happens to Tommy, where he wins one and then goes on a couple runs, right? Like, because he's just the guy who clicks on the model.
Let's go to the board. Speaking of fairway Jesus, Tommy Fleetwood making his 150th PGA Tour start this week, yet to achieve a single victory. Yet he's the favorite this week at 14-1, alongside Justin Thomas at 14-1. Brad, I'll be the first. Look, I've flip-flopped on JT all year. I've been in. I've been out. He sucks me back in. He sucked me in at the Players at 20-1. I felt like this was his week. I felt like he was striking his iron so well. Yet, course record, great. That's all we're going to remember. But like I mentioned earlier in the show, 3 out of 4 rounds over par, failed to break par. The inconsistency level with Justin Thomas right now, I don't feel like is what you want headed into the Copperhead course. Fleetwood, how do you bet a guy that doesn't win? Does he set up great? Of course, he's number one in my model, but I don't remember him ever being south of 14-1 odds. Like, his odds have never been lower than this before. So am I going to bet him at the peak of where his odds have ever been to win? I don't feel it. Either interest in either one or a take on either one of those two guys at the top for you.
I have said this early in the year that JT is just getting the respect that he probably earned throughout his career. Everyone was waiting for JT to get back to that ball striking level, gainer of tee to green that he was a few years ago. He's kind of back. Course management hasn't been good enough to warrant being 14-1. JT can totally win a tournament at any point, but do you want to be the guy who keeps betting on JT at 20-1, 14-1 with the course management that he has, right? Like, his decision making is like so awful, right? Like, he's the kind of guy who will get out of position, then he'll miss the green, and then
That's
he'll
a good
leave
point,
14 feet, and you're like, wait, how do you have a 14-foot putt for par? Like, you are really good with your wedges. Yes, you're out of position, but like, come on. And then Tommy, I loved Tommy last week. I loved him, but I said, I am never betting Tommy at 28-1, at least not this current Tommy. Now he's 14-1. I think there's a lot of people whose prices are gross. One of them is going to have to win the tournament if we win one of the favorites, but I cannot bet Tommy Fleetwood and Justin Thomas at Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele prices. They are not in that conversation with Tommy not winning in JT's current form.
See, JT's shown flashes of such
Flashes. It
brilliance,
gets
but
it
I
reeled
think
you
that
in.
he is a victim of like his own greatest asset, which is that he can pull off almost any shot at times. He can hit a high draw, he can hit a low hook, he can hit a high cut, he can hit a low stinger fade. He can hit it out of all 9 windows on the tic-tac-toe board in front of him. But because he can do that, I think that sometimes inhibits his decision-making process a little bit. And we saw this in the opening round where you have so many options, you feel like you have to pick the right one. And sometimes simplifying the game and having one shot shape, a la JJ Spawn is just going to always hit a fade off the tee. Rory's always going to hit a draw. You stop trying multiple things. And some of the like just rudimentary, okay, things are going the wrong way. How am I going to hunker down and save this round on Thursday? I get you can get frustrated and things get away, but you had no business shooting 78 like with your form. That was poor decision making. That was mentally caving at some point, which allowed that to happen, especially when I know that you got a 61 in the tank. So I'm not betting either one of those guys. Bringing the board back up. I mean, you have Xander's odds floating here to 20-1. I don't know that he's quite given verbally or watching him play any indication that he's close to the form he left off with last year. And then there's this crew right behind him of guys who are playing good golf. Connors 25-1, Straka 25-1, Burns 28, Lowry 28, Will Z at 28. Anyone in this range, Brad, that has sort of piqued your interest a little bit?
You know, it's funny because Straka was like a guy who, for the longest, regardless of how well he was playing, how many events he was winning, his odds wouldn't get past the 30s, right? Like you could get Straka at good numbers. I think Straka probably fits the best. And he's a guy who now is starting to get some win equity behind him. I really like him. Listen, sometimes when I make these models and I do my homework, I don't look at the odds, right? I just kind of predict what the odds would be. Straka's odds were I thought he'd be about a 30-1 golfer. I think he's going to drop to 20-1, seeing what the market is doing with him. So, like, if you like him, you gobble him up at 25. The one that I was confused about because I didn't know what to do with, but I do have an interest and I'm going to dig a little deeper is Corey Connors, right?
Okay.
His ball striking has been incredible. But am I really ready to commit to Corey Connors at 25, 22-1 in this field? I don't know. I would peg him more like 32, but that's what happens when, especially, I think this is a newer thing in golf. So many people, bettors, are building models and most of their data looks very similar. So these guys, the bookmakers, are making these lines and they get crushed, right? Corey Connors is not going to survive at 28 if you put him out in this field because everyone has similar thoughts. So probably Straka or Connors, but I'm probably passing on both of them.
Connors is an interesting one for me. Third place at the API, 6th last week at the Players. So he switched about a month ago to a new putter and has vastly improved on the greens. Plus 2.8 putting at the API, was 21st at the Players. If he can roll it, he has the ball striking profile to win at a course like here. All that said, I mean, you said you thought Straka was coming out at 30-1. I did my power rankings piece on Sunday before the final round of the Players. I had Straka at number 2. Now, I'll say this. I don't want to just the idea behind the piece a little bit, Brad. You know this from writing articles is like I don't want to just like pencil in the easy stuff. I want to kind of have a take or two. Like Straka, though, why not? Right? He's playing so well. He's finished top 15 in 7 of 9 tournaments this year. In 8 of those, he's gained strokes ball striking. His iron play right now is otherworldly. He's gained at least 2 strokes on approach in 8 of 9 starts in the year 2025. His putter is streaky, and that's okay with me. But I think he's been the best, statistically the best iron player on the PGA Tour in 2025. This is a place that rewards that skill set. At some point, of course, we know with all of these guys, we saw it with Mike Kim last week, these guys who, aren't perennial top 7 players in the world who are on a hot run. At some point, that candle burns out and the wick gets dried up. And, we're talking about a 31-year-old Austrian brick shit house here, but I'm going to let it ride before I bet against that candle burning out because he hasn't shown me that it's going to happen. I was pretty close on the odds board at the similar price between him and Shane Lowry, but Shane, I love Shane, but Shane switched drivers about a month ago, and his percentage of hitting fairways and good drive percentage numbers have dipped since doing so. He used to be so reliable to hit out of the fairway.
Yeah.
I have him 91st over the last 24 rounds in good drive percentage. The other thing was the putting, right? Between these two guys, Lowry's 135th. On Poet Trivialis, Straka is 23rd. So like I mentioned, second in my power rankings. I kind of thought he was going to be right at around 18 to 20 to 1. So 25, I'm more than okay with. I took that bet. If it goes down, if it goes up, I'm okay riding at that price.
I think you're going to get great CLV. Listen, Straka's number one on my model, and I normally bet the guy who's number one on my model. But let me just tell you this cheat code.
That's the worst, isn't it? When you don't bet him and he wins.
Oh, I'm like 90% sure I'm gonna bet him. I just need these tee times to stay, and I can't have him drop to 20, right? But the cheat code for Straka, you bet him top 30 every week. He's only missed it once this season. Last week it was plus money for top 30. This week it's gonna be like minus 125. He's plus 105, plus 110 for placement. That's the Straka cheat code, and that really has been paying for me to just keep betting his outright. Listen, I've bet Straka outright like almost every week. Like, I'm gonna be real. Anybody who follows me knows I'm probably gonna be on Straka again. Sometimes I get greedy, right? I get greedy with odds, and Straka's new norm is going to be this 25 to 30 range. Like, he's turning into one of those golfers.
I had a few of those last year. Like, number one in my model was decent odds, 30, 40 to 1 I ran a stat model number one. I ignored it, and the guy wins the tournament. And I'm like, I can't continue to do this. So I understand the pain there. Going down the board a little bit, Brad. Tom Kim, 35 to 1. Spieth is back, who's played well here at 35 to 1. Michael Kim, who I mentioned, who was number 2 in my stat model, 40 to 1. Smalley, 45. Glover, 45. Adam Scott, Poston, Clanton, Taylor Moore, Victor Hovland. These are some of the guys in the 50 to 1 range. I'll stretch it down to Ben Griffin, Jake Knapp, Sahith, Keith Mitchell at 60 to 1. Meat and potatoes range. Here are the odds board. Anyone that you like this week?
Yeah, I like a couple guys in this, and this is kind of where I started. And listen, just go ahead and smack me in the face when I tell you this, because I'm gonna do it. I'm taking Jordan, right? I'm taking Jordan Spieth here. Had success here. He was in contention. What was that? 2 seasons ago?
Yeah,
it was literally the dumbest decision where he pulled driver and should have hit 3-wood, went in the water. If we continue to see flashes of Jordan, his price is just going to keep getting lower and lower and lower. For him to come out at 35 to 1, a guy who also played well in the comps, right? Harbor Town could be a good course comp for this.
Absolutely,
course.
Great comp.
A course where you're going to need to be able to play all the shots in the bag. Going to need your wedges. Going to need to be skillful around the green. He hasn't really had he didn't have any success of the players on the greens. Like, that was probably his biggest miss there. But I feel like Jordan's the kind of guy where when he's not in contention at an event, especially now coming off the major surgery, he's kind of tinkering, right? Figuring it out, because he's planning ahead, right? He's trying to figure out, how do we just keep building to get better and better to get back to the form we were at? Even at Cognizant, he played freaking really well, right? Just had a couple of bad spots here. And I think at 35 to 1, I couldn't believe it. I bet Jordan right when odds came out.
He's making a ton of birdies.
Yeah,
which is always a very good indicator to me, because that shows that they're scoring well. That shows that they're being aggressive. That shows that they're hitting shots, and that shows that they're really in a good trust position with his irons. He's got to eliminate bogeys. He's got to eliminate doubles, but that can come at a tournament. And when he does that, if he's able to stack 5-6 birdies around, and this is a course that you can't really do that as much at, but he's making moves in the right direction. I didn't land on Spieth this week. I landed on a pair of players, at one at 50 and one at 55 to 1. I'll let it rip now. Number one at 50 to 1, JT Poston. I don't think, Brad, I love Post. I've had him for 2 of his wins, including at the Shriners. I don't think I've ever seen him putt as poorly as he has in 2025. He had lost in every single start putting before the Players.
Yep.
Finally, he's a good putter. Poston's a great speed putter. Finally gained strokes putting last week. I'm not sure, to be honest, if it was a change of a tool, if it was a setup change, but he did something and it kind of worked, which makes me a little bit confident in this. Shout out to my guy, Steve Bamford, who made a great point about how much he loves and thrives in sort of Carolina golf. And you made a good point about Spieth there, but this course is very Carolina-esque in Florida. He won at the Wyndham. He's been great at Harbor Town. He was top 10 in his start here last year. He seems to play his best on these courses with these isolated tree line designs that are set up for plotters and thinkers. He's hitting it well off the tee. If he can putt it well, I think he's worth a shot. And at 55-1, I'm ready for this to hit. I can't tell you. I haven't walked away from a golf tournament and watching a player play that I hadn't seen before as impressed as I was when I was at the Cognizant and following Luke Clanton. Generational flusher potential out of Clanton. Like, he's good and people want to watch him drive the ball, but I don't think that's his best skill set. Watch him hit like a 5-iron. It's incredible. It's out of the center of the face. It's effortless. It's high. It's straight. And I think like he's such a long hitter and the ball speed is like, he's swinging nothing. But I think when he clubs down a bit and is able to just roast the long iron to perfection, he's better on those courses right now. 5th at the Wyndham kind of proves that. 2nd at the RSM Classic, 2 Carolina-esque courses as well. 18th at the Honda, 2nd at the John Deere. Like, these aren't driver-heavy golf courses. Now, he doesn't have a ton of starts. He's still number 1 off the tee in the last 24 rounds. He's also number 1 in approach proximity from 200 plus. He hits long irons amazing. Number 1 ranked amateur in the world, of course, by a substantial margin, I believe. And these guys, as we know, Brad, step onto the PGA Tour more ready than ever to compete. Comfortable with Florida golf, grew up down here, just won like a week and a half ago his 2nd NCAA collegiate event of the season when he won the Seminole Intercollegiate. Playing great, confidence. The moment with him and his family at the Cognizant earning his card was so wholesome, and you can just tell that this kid has a good head on his shoulders. He is faith-driven. He is not results-oriented, and he has an incredible support system that I think gives him a great chance at immediate success. And 55-1 on a course that I think really suits his game is a bet that I'm going to take. And if it loses, I'm fine backing Clanton at these type of numbers at these kind of courses.
Dude, I was like impressed with Clanton. I thought, and I was pretty spot on. I faded Clanton in a matchup in round 3 because I just thought that with the amount of emotion, the amount of everything that poured in on making that cut there, it was just hard. Shot a 70.
He was crying. He was in tears.
Like, I mean, he was there. Like, I was in the press conference when they were asking him before the tournament, like doing his presser, like, who's here? And he's like, I don't know. I let my mom handle that. Right now, it all comes to fruition with everyone. Probably some people were there that you didn't expect to be there. You're crying. You accomplished this lifelong dream. It was tough for him. And the dude still finished. Well, he finished top 15 in that event. Like, I really like him. A golfer who I was this, and like, I feel kind of guilty saying this because I got him at 60-1, and I think he's down to like 45-40 now. But I just have to talk about it because I think this was a golfer that we really need to like focus in on, because I don't think he's, I don't know. I don't think that, I didn't think he would be a golfer that would get down to the 40-1s. He's never really gotten that kind of respect. Lucas Glover. Lucas Glover is getting so much respect, right? Like, Lucas Glover, when he went back to back, his odds were like was like 120-1, and the next week 110-1. Now he goes and finishes T3 at the Players, and his odds open up
Good
at
week.
60-1, balloon down. But this dude, like, he's everything you want at a course like Valspar. I mean, at Innisbrook, right? Like, great tee to green, great on approach. He was a gainer on the putting surface last week. You know, he wasn't great at API on the putting greens, but with a guy like Glover, he's the one that, you know, when it gets hot with the flat stick, it goes nuclear. Like, if when he was first round leader at the Players, you could just see he was making putts from all over the place. And some of those putts, like the bonus putts that he was making, I was just like, this is just fantastic. You have to parlay that kind of success, because we've seen it happen, right? Like Sanderson Farms, he parlayed that into playing well at the Black Desert, right? He's the kind of guy who strings really good starts together. And don't quote me on that, because I know he did miss the cut at the Waste Management, but normally he strings good starts together. I think this is a really good setup for him.
Yeah, I like that call. I like that call quite a bit. I was going to ask you, because he's in my model, and it's the second week in a row that he's been much like nearly inside the top 10, and I've
Yeah.
had to kind of consider it. I can't do it right now. He's missed 3 consecutive cuts. At what price would I have to give you to bet Victor Hovland right now? Is he a just complete red line? Like, if I gave you 80-1, would you do it? 100-1? What price would it take to like go back to Vic? Because statistically, he's gained strokes on approach in 4 straight. He's not been terrible around the greens. He's getting crushed with the putter, and he can't find the center of the face with the driver right now. But I trust him more than anything as a good long iron player on a course like this. I think he's been decent here before. Yeah, T3 in his debut in 2021, 33rd in his second appearance a few years ago here. Is there any signs of life out of Vic right now for you?
I mean, maybe if you take some away, like, he didn't make the cut at the Players, but he still played pretty well in that second round given, right? Like, he was a gainer on the greens, gainer on approach, right? Maybe 81. Like, I think you'd just be forcing my hand. Like with Victor, I think every really good professional goes through this little genesis, right? Most of them, where
Yes.
they're so hot and so good, it's hard to sustain that. Then they start kind of messing with things, whether that's changing their caddy, changing their swing, changing their equipment, because there's always this like strive to be better, right? Everyone strives to be better. And Victor's
Mhm.
going through that right now. His game will get back to where it's going to be. And we're going to look and we're going to be like, oh, yo, you see, Victor just won X, Y, and Z tournament, and he just went off at 75-1. It's going to happen. I think this is a better setup for him in terms of tee to green. Now, I get really nervous though, right? Like, if my man can't drain a putt to save his life,
Mhm.
can he get hot? Because he hasn't had a successful putting outing in quite some time. Maybe 80-1.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you a couple of my long shot guys
Yeah,
here before we get out of here. I took Ryan Gerard, went back to him 100-1 this week. I think he's a good top 20 bet as well. Last chance here, the Florida swing for a good old Florida boy.
Yep.
6 out of 6 cuts made this season, 15th at the Farmers, 17th Vedanta World, 25th at the Cognizant, and then 42nd at the Players. But as I mentioned, shot a collapsing 78 on Sunday because he was making a run on Saturday at the top. Ball striking numbers have just really been there. He's gained on approach in every single PGA Tour start this season. A really quality, sound putter who can roll it when he's hot. So triple digits on Gerard, and then just a big number at 185-1 this morning. I think everybody's going to be on him. I was looking at him because of the course history here. Davis Riley. I mean, something flipped. I don't know what it was before the Florida swing, but he's kind of back to striping it again, at least for 3 starts. 48th at the Cognizant and had some nice steps, was in the top 20 for a while there. 6th at Puerto Rico, and then 38th place at the Players, which is a great result for him. Lost in a playoff here in 2022 to Sam Burns. Back that up with another top 20 in 2023 in the following year. Crazy big number. it's just two-time PGA Tour winner, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think. Like, he's been down through the depths, but a guy who's won twice. And you look at the guy at the very top of the board in Fleetwood who's never won in 3 times as many starts. So there's something maybe there to do. 185 to 1. Let's rock Davis Riley.
I was like trying to think like when I was trying to get to Davis Riley, I think if there was any RTJ courses that kind of fit the mold that he would play well at. And I was like, I was doing like these mental gymnastics on him, right? Like Alabama guy, plays these RTJ courses,
Mississippi boy.
God, I gotta feel like there's some like that fit the mode. I don't know, man. Like,
Well,
I feel
Burns
like
stormed him in 2022, if I remember right. Like, Riley kind of had that locked. Like, he was playing awesome that week.
Yeah,
And
he
I remember
was.
everyone was like, this kid's swing looks perfect that week because it is so on plane. It looks like he could never miss, but struggled like a lot of young players do. But there's so many guys here that have never sniffed what it feels like late on a Sunday afternoon to be in the lead or near the lead in a PGA Tour tournament, and he at least has that experience.
Yeah, I was thinking out, and like I was like, the reason I was bringing that up to see if there were courses that he probably plays a lot that are like this, and I think there are a couple RTJ courses. So you want to try to draw as many parallels as possible, especially with long shots, to see if there was any value. And I thought there was a little bit. This kind of reminds me of more. I would say like more of like a thicker, rough RTJ course, like still tree lined, still kind of got some of those elements of like the bunkers being tough fairway bunkers. Gonna reward shot makers, so it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean the RTJ Trail is in Bama, right?
Yep.
Like that's where all his courses are. So yeah, any you got one long shot for me? Your favorite guy over 100 to 1?
Dude, I didn't bet a long shot yet. And I think that this is like probably the worst mentality that we do as bettors is I'm like, I want to wait till tee times come out, but
yeah,
these prices are going to change
distinct.
so fast.
It's early, and we know how wind and weather changes here in Florida, but there does appear to be like a significant, at least this morning. Somebody sent me this morning, my boy Ian, a large discrepancy on Thursday in terms of morning to afternoon wind strength.
You know who someone was that was in my model that I didn't get there yet. Let me see if I can pull this back up. Was Neil Shipley. He's 300 to 1.
Love Shipley.
The dude's he's dynamite on par fives, good approach player, right? Like he's a guy who can get hot with his putter, which is really nice. Really strong tee to green. Like he's probably one of the best guys past the 150 to 1 mark. And so you're getting double the price. I don't know if I've gotten there yet. Like maybe he'll be more fun to bet him first round leader, but he's at 301, right? Like you throw a couple bones on there and you're getting paid pretty nice.
Shipley's got star. Like he doesn't maybe have the game for star potential, but he's got like the intangibles, the charisma, the hair, the build, the look, like the ability to just be like self-deprecating and make fun of himself, but like enjoyable to root for. Like he's got a lot of like things about him, and we like rooting for big boys out there. We like beef. We like these guys, and we get attached to them, and they're good for rooting interests in golf. So here for a Neil Shipley run this week. Brad, awesome to have you join me on the show as always. It was an honor. You are a true professional. What else do you have going on the rest of this week? Where can people check out some more of your content?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I would have to plug the people who pay the bills and keep the lights on. We are doing breakdowns for golf and for men's and women's college basketball. NBCsports.com is where you can find it. And golfchannel.com, I'll have my best bets out in the odds preview there. So those are the top 2 places where you can find me. You can find me on X at Mr. Brad Thomas.
Love it, dude. We'll catch up soon. I would love to come on one of your programs soon as we get things going. I'll be in the building for TGL tomorrow night. Once we get this season wrapped up here next week, my schedule starts to open up a little
Heck
bit.
yeah.
So thanks again for joining me, man. It was awesome to talk, and we'll be in touch soon, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, dude.
Later, man. All right, gang. Hopefully that was a great show. I super enjoyed having Brad on, as always. Remember, thank you to the people at Rotoballer for being the presenting sponsor of this show. As always, promo code there is Lines. Come over, join the team. We'd be happy to have you. The place to follow me is at Tour Picks on X. My full betting card will be posted 100% free of charge, as always, on Wednesday afternoon. Good luck this week. I hope you hit a winner. Drop me a comment. Let me know who you like to win. You never know when I'm going to prop up the giveaways again. We've got more stuff on the way heading into major championship season. This has been another episode of the Preferred Lines podcast. You guys are the best. I'm out of here. Good luck. Peace.